There's a damn good Bellator card this weekend, James.
Yep. Got some insight in that card too. I interviewed actually 3 fighters on that card coming up here on Thursday. So I interviewed
nice.
Gegard Mousasi, interviewed him, just dropped that interview today. Interviewed Henry Corrales and interviewed 4. I interviewed Bobby Voelker as well. So Bobby Voelker, Jake Hager, and Gegard Mousasi and Henry Corrales. You can find that all on my Bellator playlist on my channel, youtube.com/LynchOnSports. I know we're going to get into the main event. Let's get into it now. The odds are pretty even. I think Mousasi is a slight favorite. I'm looking right now, -170. This is a close fight. Like, Lima is no joke, especially if this fight does stay standing. It'll be very interesting to see who the better striker is. I tend to give the edge there to Mousasi just with the K1 kickboxing experience and the fact that this guy's fought like at heavyweight before. Like, Lima's coming up, but Lima really is a middleweight. Like, if you've ever seen Lima in person, I saw him years ago when he fought Ben Saunders at Casino Rama in Orillia, Ontario, back when I was living in Toronto. He's a very big welterweight. Even back then, this was like back in like 2011 or something, or maybe even before that. But he is a middleweight. Now, Mousasi, though, like I said, he fought at light heavyweight. I mean, he was the Strikeforce light heavyweight champion. So I asked him in the interview, I said, do you think that's going to be a factor? Because they are pretty similar physically in terms of the height and reach. But Mousasi's obviously been in there with bigger guys, whereas Lima's been in there with, mainly welterweights, right? And actually, I think people forget Lima fought at middleweight earlier in his career. I want to say around 2010, I think, before he got in Bellator, before he went in the MFC and then went to Bellator. So, I mean, he's used to that weight class, but still just being in there with guys and actual experience, that'll be very interesting. But I tend to think if it does stay standing, I would give a slight edge to Mousasi. The only thing that worries me about him is that we've seen fights like against Lovato Jr. and, some other fights where it's just like, what is going on here? So I expect Mousasi to win. I think if it does stay standing, he's got the edge. I think if it goes to the ground, I think Mousasi has the edge there too. But it'll be interesting with both guys having pretty big layoffs heading into this fight.
I couldn't agree more, man. Douglas Lima is 32. Gegard Mousasi is 35. And they both just got an absolute wealth of experience. The difference is Mousasi's actually got a decent-sized reach advantage. Physically, their height is similar, but Mousasi's got about a 5-inch reach advantage. And when I did the tape on this one, what stood out to me is that Lima is incredibly explosive. He's going to have a speed advantage here, although I think, like you said, Mousasi's got a better pedigree for striking. I think he may have a striking technique advantage. But Lima really struggles with the grappling. He does have an active guard, but he's been taken down in many of his past couple of fights. And Mousasi is a great wrestler, being the bigger man with the strength advantage, a great gas tank. Even in his loss, when he lost the title a fight or so ago, you saw that he turned up late. He turned up in round 4 and he won that round after being down 3. This guy can go 5 rounds. I think Mousasi's going to have a grappling heavy game plan. When it's on the feet, I think he'll be perfectly fine, not out of water. He's got power of his own. And as long as he doesn't get clipped by the fast hands of Lima, I think he'll mix in the grappling and he'll squeeze out a decision here. I don't know if I like the price tag because he is sitting about -170 right now. I feel like that's a little steep with him being the older fighter here, but I think he's rightfully the favorite.
Yeah, and you can almost look at the inside the distance prop, but Lima's a tough guy to finish, right? Like Koreshkov couldn't finish him, Askren couldn't finish him. It was decision losses that he's had. It is interesting that first Rory McDonald fight, that's how Rory basically beat Lima, was just taking him down, controlling him. Mousasi could do the same thing here, like you mentioned with the strength. So yeah, I mean, anyone that knows me even half well knows that Mousasi is my favorite fighter. I've been a fan of his for years. He's my favorite interview. Like, I just I can't say enough good things about this guy. But even all that aside, I still like the style matchup for him here. So I'm taking Mousasi.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can back you up there. This isn't just fan bias. I think this is a good spot for him. And you know what? Lima's only getting this shot because he won the rematch with the Red
Rory
King there. And that was really the shell of Rory McDonald, though. He tried to do the same thing. Rory McDonald tried to implement in the exact same strategy, and he just couldn't hold Lima down anymore. He just doesn't have it anymore. He doesn't have that spark. He doesn't have that fire. Lima's still hungry. I think Mousasi still has a chip on his shoulder after losing his title the way that he did. He fought Lyoto Machida. It was a Machida fight. I mean, he's the kind of guy that's so dangerous. You have to fight that slow, steady pace, and if you don't, you're going to sleep. So he played it smart, did what he had to. I kind of thought that Gegard Mousasi looked bad in his last couple fights. After going back and rewatching the tape, he didn't so much look bad. He had a bad stylistic matchup where he lost his title, and then he fought Machida, and he did exactly what he had to do. So I'm on Lima here. I'm not sure if I'll get to the window and bet it, but I'm kind of tempted to do so. Maybe I'll throw him in a parlay. But it's funny. This is where we can disagree just a little bit again. I would be tempted to go Lima by decision. Mousasi by decision here. Lima's so hard to finish. He is so hard to finish. And I think Mousasi is going to come grappling heavy, which should extend this fight. And you know how these guys get. When it's round 4, it's round 5. They don't quite have as much pop in their punches. They've got blood making their arms heavy. Like, they just don't have that finishing ability anymore. I think Mousasi by decision, if you can get a prop line on it, might not be a bad way to look.
Absolutely. I don't know if we're going to talk about any other fights. I'll kind of give you some quick Coles notes on the rest of the card here quickly. Just some fights that sort of catch my eye. Henry Corrales fighting Brandon Girtz in the co-main event. A lot of people forget this is Girtz going down to 45, and at 35 years old, I think that's a bad move for him. I think it's a little bit too late. Him moving down a weight class, generally fighters that do that later in their career don't do so well. And Corrales, I think, is criminally underrated. You look at the 2-fight losing streak, but you look at who he's losing to. Juan Archuleta, Darion Caldwell. Caldwell just out-wrestled him. Archuleta, very close fight, but Corrales even told me himself he hated that fight. He hated that Archuleta was kind of playing more of like a, kind of a tactical game, and he didn't have an opponent that's going to stand and trade with him. Well, Girtz is going to do that, and if he does that with Henry Corrales, he's going to potentially get knocked out here. I really like Corrales in this fight. Corrales also got a new 4-fight contract. He knows the promotion's on his side here, win or lose, so Corrales is going to look great, and he did get to work with Eddie Cha. A lot of people were wondering that. Cha did come back in time after the Korean Zombie fight to get to work with him, so he did get that coaching, which is going to be a key thing there. Really interested in this Bobby Voelker and Sabah Homasi fight. Voelker, Strikeforce vet, coming back in, hasn't fought in a long time, but Voelker's 41 years old, and he has looked pretty good on the regional scene. If you look at his record overall, just the one loss to Zach Busha, since he's left the UFC, he's gone on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-1 in his last 11 fights. So Voelker's got a nice winning streak, but Sabah Homasi in his last fight really showed me that this guy has turned a corner. I could see Homasi pulling this off. I'm not sure where the betting line is going to go on this one, but I would imagine Homasi is going to be the favorite. This Taylor Johnson and Johnny Eblen fight's going to be great. Johnson looked great in his last fight, getting that upset win over Ed Ruth. Keep an eye on him as well. He's another guy that Bellator scooped up from the UFC. Johnson lost in Contender Series. UFC wanted nothing to do with him, so he goes over to Bellator, gets a multi-fight contract. Another fight to keep an eye on the prelims. Jared Scoggins, the brother of Justin Scoggins, going to be making his Bellator debut. This guy's gotten a 10-1 record, just the one loss to Jesse Bazzi, who's a teammate of Cody Stamen back at Michigan Top Team. Pretty solid fighter, but Scoggins is very dangerous as well. Done a really good job, put the time in on the regional scene. But he's fighting a guy in Toby Misek, who you guys remember had a big upset victory over Eric Perez in his Bellator debut as well. So really good clash of styles there. Adam Borax is also on this card too, taking on this Eric Sanchez guy who's 9-5. Borax is, I think, so totally legit. Just the one loss. He's going to absolutely get a highlight reel finish here. And Jake Hager's back. Who doesn't want to watch him fight? So
I love Jake Hager.
Got a chance to talk to him today. Really great interview. Got some insight onto just his training with, doing the MMA training and then also getting to do his AEW wrestling stuff. So really good stuff there. Again, you can find all that on my Bellator playlist. Nick Newell's also on this card too. Dare I say this card's pretty close to what the UFC is bringing this weekend. And I'm so glad, by the way, Clint, this is on a Thursday. So it's not going to clash. It's not going to clash with Saturday at all. So you get a breather on the Friday and then you can go back and watch the UFC. So great card here from Bellator on Thursday night.
James, I'm going to be dual screening. I'm going to have my Thursday night football up, and then I'm going to be having Bellator up. This is going to be a fantastic Thursday night card. You just rattled the whole thing off. I'm so appreciative of you for doing that because I haven't had a chance to break down the entire card, but my followers, my degenerate gambling followers, they want to hear all the good stuff. So thank you so much for sharing all that with us this evening. That's a hell of a card. Hopefully some more lines will poke their heads out throughout the rest of the week, and we can get some Thursday betting action down.